Hey folks, my name is Ken Yoshikawa. I'm an actor and a poet, and I played Ben in the Journal of Ben Uchida, which is a play written by Naomi Iizuka and also produced by the Oregon Children's Theater earlier this year. The play was canceled prematurely halfway through its run due to COVID-19. I was asked to write a reflection, and I'm here to read it to you. So here we go. For a long while I have had trouble crying, but oddly enough not around my father. You'd think the societal trend of male emotional suppression would make it impermissible to weep around one's father, but being yet another child of divorced parents, maybe I have made up for in tears my unspent time with him. So for a long while I've been worried that I'd be unable to cry on stage. Whenever I feel some measure of emotion, my body seems to bust out its shepherd's crook and hook the impulse right behind the curtain, classic emotional suppression. When I had the honor of being cast as Ben in the Journal of Ben Uchida, otherwise known as Jobu, I had the very same worry that I wouldn't be able to build toward and release at the emotional climax of reuniting with the ghost of Ben's father. Through the bonding of rehearsal, we, the cast and directing crew together, found the arc of the show. We built safety around the racism and the misogyny of the play. We built trust. And a long story short, during those daytime performances, we successfully rode the rather wild waves of the kids' energy. Lo and behold, arriving at the dreaded scene of the father's death, I found it in me to cry on stage. It was satisfying. Then in the scene of meeting the father's ghost at the end of the play, that grief turned to anger. What was really surprising to me was how it was the following scene, where older Ben reflects on it all with his old teacher from camp, Mrs. Kroll, that forgiveness bubbles its way out.
That when you look up at the sky, what you're seeing is a memory of light. A memory of something already gone.
All this loss and all this grief, looking at the stars together, it was so meaningful. It was often hard not to cry. It felt affirming in a strange way. It's not like crying was a requisite for a good performance, but it meant something to me. And it's not like I cried every performance. I had a performance one day where I just didn't feel it as strongly in comparison to the previous showing we performed back-to-back twice a day, see? Maybe I was just tired, that's quite normal, but I wanted to hit that note every time. I had this drive. Since there was always another pass with another showing until closing night, I figured tomorrow I'd just give it another shot to maybe relax more into it. As we know now, though, it was not meant to be. Because Jobu was such an emotional show for everyone in the cast, we had developed a rather consistent and loving cycle of warm-up exercises. The night before that day, we received a message about the COVID-19 closures beginning, the restrictions on gatherings of more than 250 people. I personally did not want to endanger our audiences and ourselves, but we were to show up just in case. The energy of being in costume, ready to warm up, was like gearing up to pitch a baseball to then have the batter, our audience, not show up to plate. It was a very strange experience. The schools one by one called in their cancellations. We, the cast, looked at each other and were agog at it. Wow, yesterday was most likely our last performance and we didn't even realize it. We decided to go on stage and take some pictures together to commemorate the moment, and then we disbanded. Of course, we didn't get the cancellation of the rest of the run until a couple days later. It definitely stung. We built this thing together, had given it so much love, had wrestled so many ghosts into our words to then exorcise them on a dime. March 13th. It was also the day my mother and my partner were going to see the show. At the end of the day, it was only one play. But it was a play that had so much meaning to so many people in such a variety of ways. We performed for survivors of Japanese incarceration. We performed for the mass variety of school children. We performed for the families just learning about the deeply racist American injustices like Japanese incarceration or the caging of children on the southern border. For the insulated white realms of theater and education, it was an oddly refreshing production. I admire that while we handled the darker matters of the play with sensitivity, we didn't talk down to our audiences. There were a lot of wins in that show. In order for me to cry when Ben's father died, I learned I had to find the deepest joy possible. For every tragedy involves a fall from great promise. All across the country, there are tens of thousands of artists who no doubt have a similarly interrupted story. Hundreds of times that many people aren't receiving those stories that still call to be told. As I believe art is a spiritual venture, all the energy of that creativity still exists, still has momentum, still seeks to serve and share. Maybe the ghosts of these plays still lurk, echoing in empty chambers across America, waiting, doing what they can. It's not so different for all of us. The work may change, but the work goes on. It must, somehow. It must.